From fast-moving white water to calm pools, rivers and lakes play a vital role in the Earth's water cycle. The water that evaporates from ocean falls as rain or snow. Some of the water soaks deep into the ground, and plants take up some quantity or they evaporate again. A large quantity of this water finds its way into rivers, flowing downhill until it reaches the lowest level, which is usually the sea and sometimes an inland lake. Across the world, this sequence of events is called the water cycle. In addition to this chain of water cycle, rivers and lakes also help in shaping the landscape of planet Earth. As the river flows, it wears away the ground and slowly and steadily over millions of years reshape the landscape, forming one of the most diverse biomes. Many great rivers start their journey in mountains and highlands, like the Yangtze in China that flows from Tibetan Plateau and the Ganges in India, flowing from the Himalayas. Traveling through the mountains, these rivers create their own path and are capable of reaching any kind of landscape, from Arctic tundra to hot desert. Rivers flowing through rainforest regions are fed by plentiful tropical rain, forming vast waterways several kilometers wide, like the Amazon and Congo rivers. The Mississippi River and its tributaries form the largest river system in North America. Some rivers flow by the side of a snow-capped mountain in a very small area, while others collect water from a vast area of land. Sometimes the river drains an area and is called its watershed. A large watershed may contain dozens of small rivers and streams or tributaries flowing into the main river. These rivers and streams combine together to make up a river system. The Amazon river system has the biggest watershed of all and covers about 1/3 of South America. The Mississippi river system is nearly as big, but this system carries only about 1/10 as much water as the Amazon because far less rain falls there than in South America. Rivers across the world vary in many ways. While some rivers like Rhine in Europe flow evenly throughout the year, other rivers experience annual floods during the rainy season. They also vary in amount of mud and sand particles or sediment that they carry. The Mississippi and the Amazon are very muddy rivers, and the fish living in these rivers find their way using smell and touch instead of sight. High mountains are worn down by the rivers as they carry away the crumbling material, forming valleys. This wearing down is called degradation. New mountains take shape as old ones wear away, forming a cycle that continues over the years. Sometimes it so happens that the river keeps cutting down into its valley while the land around it keeps rising. This deposition of weared away particles is called aggradation, and the most spectacular result of this process is the Grand Canyon in Arizona. The rushing water of rivers and streams provide different kinds of habitats for animals and plants. In addition to this, way the water flows has a huge influence on the kinds of creatures that can survive in it. Like the swift-flowing streams capture plenty of oxygen from the air, helping fish and other aquatic animals breathe underwater. But food in such streams can be scarce, as there is no mud for the plants to take root. So the biggest source of food in the stream is not plants, but waste material from outside the stream. When a stream runs through a forest, dead leaves and rotting wood fall into the water, forming the initial community of living things like the fungi and bacteria. These microorganisms break down the dead material, forming slime around rocks and leaves in streams. These then become the main food source for aquatic larvae of insects, which in turn become a meal of the predators such as water beetles, water bugs, and fish. As the river reaches lower ground, the flow of water becomes smoother. Here, even though the river flows faster, but near the river bed, the water is calmer, allowing the sand and mud to settle. Worms and mussels bury themselves in the bed and filter mud and water for small food particles. It is also a place for the water weeds to take root, trailing their long stems in water. Tall plants like reeds too grow around the water's edge. Some huge rivers fall from great heights, resulting in thundering waterfalls, creating their own mini environment and filling the air constantly with the mist and spray. The Amazon River floods a huge area of forest every year, and the trees have learned to survive, being flooded for months at a time. Many fish use this time to swim in here and feed and reproduce. Some trees drop their fruits during the flood and depend on fish to eat and distribute the seeds for pollination. The journey of river ends as the river reaches the sea. If the river brings enough mud and there is no powerful sea current to take it away, it may build its own flatland called a delta far out into the sea. In contrast to the rivers, a lake forms when water collects in the depression caused in the land. Lakes are relatively young features on Earth's surface, and glaciers created them during the Ice Age. Glaciers are slow-flowing rivers of ice that create great hollows out of the land as they move. While America's Great Lakes formed in this manner, some of the world's oldest and deepest lakes have a different origin. Like in East Africa, movements in the Earth's crust created vast spills in the land that filled with water and formed deep lakes, some now million years old. A lake can also form in a valley blocked by a landslide. While most of the lakes are freshwater, some lakes are salty. These lakes are sometimes much saltier than sea. Caspian Sea is the world's largest salt lake and was once joined to the ocean. Interestingly, most salt lakes lie far away from the sea. These lakes are salty because rivers that drain into lakes always carry dissolved salts. For a lake to remain fresh, it has to have an outlet to allow the salt to wash away. If the lakes do not have an outlet, the salt flowing in builds up and makes the lake salty. These salty lakes support only selected unusual creatures. However, lakes never remain lakes forever. even largest of lakes fill up slowly with sediment and disappear. While most of the lakes are 12,000 years old, the oldest lake is Lake Baikal in Siberia, which is 25 million years old. Lakes depend more on food produced in the water itself than on dead material falling in from the shore, and the way the waters of a lake mix or don't mix greatly affects the lake's life. While the top layer is very low in nutrients, the lower layer has it in abundance. And why is it so? The surface water warms up as sun rays fall on it, making it less dense than cold water. As a result, it floats on top as a separate layer. The waves of this top layer mix with the air and absorb plenty of oxygen, making it ideal for animals to survive. But as the family of the animals increase, the nutrients are used up by them, diminishing the nutrients at the top layer. The lower layer, on the other hand, has less opportunity to receive oxygen and therefore is not capable of supporting life very much. When the animals living on the top die, they sink below the bottom layer, making it rich in nutrients. The edges of the lake are shallow and receive sufficient sunlight for reeds and other plants to take root in the muddy bottom. These shallow areas are also ideal habitats for insects, snails, and other creatures. The plants growing here provide hiding places for fish. There are also other lake shores where waves and winds do not allow plants to take root, making these rocky shores look barren. In rivers and lakes, water is rarely in short supply, so they provide home to many microscopic planktons, towering palm trees, plants, and plant-like organisms. But getting enough light, air, and nutrients poses a great challenge for these surviving plants. Compared to the land plants, water plants face a totally different world. Just like us humans, they require oxygen, but growing in mud devoids them of this vital element. They make up for this with air-filled stems and leaf stalks. These transport oxygen down to their roots and often help stop the plants from sinking in the water. Another danger the plant face in stream is that of being washed away by the water current. But unlike land plants, they also have the advantage of getting enough water. They can take in water through their leaves and stems instead of completely relying on their roots. In case a pond dries out, some species of plants become land plants for a temporary period. Algae forms one of the most important plants in freshwater. They are not true plants, but just as plants, they also use the sun's energy to synthesize their own food through a chemical process called photosynthesis. Maximum of these freshwater algae are the microscopic single-celled variety. These play a crucial role in the community of tiny free-floating organisms called the plankton. These planktons form the basis of food chains in both the sea and freshwater. Other types of algae grow attached to rocks or surface of larger plants, where they are sometimes visible as a fuzzy green layer. A variety of phytoplankton is found in freshwater. Cyanobacteria are the smallest ones that multiply until they form a thick green scum on the water. These cyanobacteria were once called blue-green algae, but they are neither true plants nor true algae. They are considered to be types of bacteria, but different from the ones that cause human diseases. Diatoms are other microscopic algae known for making beautiful glass-like shells out of silica, the same substance that sand is made of. Other than these small and simple freshwater plants, large flowering plants form a majority of freshwater plants. These flowering plants have dominated plant life on Earth since they first evolved more than 100 million years ago. In mountain streams, non-flowering species such as mosses and ferns can also be common. Freshwater plants have their origin in land-living families of plants and are easily described in terms of the way they grow. Like the reeds that grow through shallow water and into the air are called emergents. As the water gets deep, these plants are replaced by water lilies. These have floating leaves and roots and are firmly anchored in the bed. Other kinds of plants freely float on the surface of the water, with their roots dangling in water, while some live entirely underwater. Some plants have even adapted to survive in fast streams. They do this either by clinging tightly to the rocks or growing long, flexible stems. These stems sway in the water current without getting carried away in the stream. Reeds, cattails, and other emergents can form dense stands along the edge of a river or lake. Spreading quickly, they send horizontal stems called rhizomes through the mud. In due time, the stems produce new shoots which appear as parts above water. On the edge of a pond, the dead remains of emergent plants can build up to form a waterlogged soil called peat. Peat is very fibrous and microorganisms can't break it due to lack of oxygen. It builds along the pond edges. The pond may gradually fill up. In time, trees and shrubs may take over, forming a swamp or even dry land. Water lilies also grow using rhizomes. The rhizomes store food and are eaten by people in some parts of the world. Biggest species, the giant Victoria lily of the Amazon, has round, tray-shaped leaves up to 2 meters or 6 feet wide. The upper surface of the leaves have tiny air holes through which water lilies breathe. The leaves also produce wax, preventing them from filling with water. Water crowfoots, duckweeds, and poundweeds also have floating leaves and are important food for ducks. Like water lily, the sacred lotus of Asia is a water plant with a large emergent leaves and flowers. In Buddhism, it is regarded as a sacred flower. Another lotus flower native to North America is regarded as subspecies of this sacred lotus, while many consider it as a separate species. The most specialized water plants are those that live completely submerged. They often grow in shady places and must absorb all their oxygen and other gases from the water. These finely divided leaves of submerged plants help them absorb gases and nutrients. The most widespread plants are the milfoils, and milfoil is derived from the name in French that stands for 1,000 leaves. Plants that eat animals are called carnivorous plants, and bladderwort is the only carnivorous plant that lives underwater. It floats just below the surface in ponds and grows small swelling called bladders. If a mosquito larvae or a water flea bumps into a bladder, it is sucked in and trapped. The plant then digests it and fulfills its need of nutrients like nitrogen. There are other carnivorous plants that grow in bogs and fens. These carnivorous plants trap insects to get nutrients not present in the soil. The plants depend on insects and winds to transfer the pollen containing the male sex cells from one flower to another through a process called pollination. A seed is developed within the female part of the flower when that part is pollinated. Reeds and cattails are wind pollinated. The small flowers of these plants produce dusty pollen that can flow for miles in the wind. Plants like water lilies and other species with showy flowers rely on insects to pick up sticky pollen. They attract insects with scent, colorful petals, and a sugary secretion called nectar. There are some water lilies that even generate heat as an attraction. Water plants are known as some of the worst weeds in the world. Today, these weeds have spread far beyond their original ranges and have invaded foreign countries, thanks to us human beings who are responsible for this unintentionally. Some have been grown as ornamental plants in garden ponds, which then escaped into the wild. Others have been sold as aquarium plants across the world. When people empty their aquariums into the lakes or ditches, the plants escape. When they reach their new habitats, there may not be any animals that are capable of eating these plants. This results in them multiplying beyond control. Once these foreign species have established themselves in new habitat, they are helped by boat trailers to spread to far-off places by transporting it from lake to lake. A plant from South America is one of the notorious weeds of warmer climates. Known as water hyacinth, it has large glossy leaves and striking purplish flowers. It provides horizontal underwater stems, giving rise to new plants, thus multiplying asexually. In a small period of time, water hyacinth can spread to cover a large area of water with a dense mat of plants, preventing oxygen from reaching the water and choking the native wildlife. Because of its intensity of influence, a whole scientific journal is devoted to this one plant and the problems it causes. These water weeds have spread to such a vast extent that they have given rise to a huge industry that deals only with destroying water weeds. Different lines of attack have been formulated to battle against these invading plants. This process is called biological control. Some of the techniques of biological control include mechanically removing plants from the water, poisoning them with plant-killing chemicals called herbicides, introducing organisms such as insects that eat plants or cause disease. People are also educated to be careful when they move boat trails. River Nile may be longer than Amazon, but the Amazon is Earth's greatest river and drains the largest river basin in the world. The sheer scale of the Amazon River is awe-inspiring. 1/5 of the entire world's river water passes between its banks. Rivers of the Amazon basin are of three main kinds, namely white water, clear water, and black water. The Amazon and its major southern tributary, the Madeira, falls under the category of white water rivers. White water rivers are actually light brown and have gained this color from the sediment that they carry down from the Andes Mountains. It is very difficult to see in these murky waters, and therefore fish that live in these rivers use sound, smell and touch to navigate through these muddy waters. Clear water rivers carry little sediment as they drain the much more ancient worn-down rocks of Brazilian highlands. A diverse range of fish migrate in vast numbers up and down clear rivers such as the Xingu, Araguaia and Tapajós. Just like clear water rivers, black water rivers too carry little sediments, but the dissolved substances from the decaying plants give the water a dark color. Black water river includes the Rio Negro, which meets the white water Amazon near Manaus. This black water tributary is the world's second largest river in terms of volume of water flow. Even small tributaries in the Amazon river system are major rivers. They provide a system of watery highways useful for travel in a region with a few roads, and the strength of the Amazon current is so strong that it carries its waters up to 320 kilometers out into the sea. The Amazon is unique in its own way and provides some unusual habitats. Plants float on the river, forming islands that may be over 1 kilometer long, and during the dry season, they sink and decay. It has far more types of fish than any other river system. Between 2,000 to 3,000 different species live within the sea. It will be interesting to know the animals that inhabit these freshwaters. The majority of them belong to the family of invaders. These are the kind of animals whose ancestors entered freshwater from either the ocean or from land to make freshwater their permanent home. All this and much more in the second part of Rivers and Lakes. Freshwater habitats pose a great challenge for the animals living in them, as they are more likely to change than the sea. The freshwater habitat can freeze, turn into raging torrents, lose all their oxygen, or even dry up. Lack of salt is one more problem that the freshwater animals have to face. In sea, the seawater has about the same salt concentration as the fluid in animals' bodies, while freshwater is less salty. When the salty fluid in animals' body absorbs fresh water, it makes the body fluid of the animals too much watery. Small animals are always in danger of water flooding into their tissues, making them swell up and even burst. Because of these challenges, not all the sea animals have made the leap to living in lakes and rivers. While crabs have made freshwater their home, starfish or octopus still live in the sea. Animals of the living world have been divided into two major categories. One is the animals with backbones, known as the vertebrates. and the other is the animals without backbones. Those are called the invertebrates. Other than these two major categories, there are other types too that are unrelated. Invertebrates form a vital part of all water ecosystems. While sponges and crabs are found in the sea, arthropods are common in fresh water. These arthropods are invertebrates with jointed legs and include insects, spiders, and water mites. Water mites are minute relatives of spiders. But the life in freshwater is full of uncertainties, and these animals have to deal with it to survive and multiply. And for this, these creatures follow a trick. They have the ability to produce eggs that resist drying and are also capable of sealing up their whole bodies in temporary but protective cocoons. In the event of the pond or the stream drying up, these small creatures survive using these tricks. They may even be carried far away to a new destination by wind or in the guts of a large animal. Due to this transportation, many freshwater animals have a continental or worldwide distribution. Respiration is a process through which animals release energy from food through their body, and for this, they require oxygen. But water contains less of oxygen as compared to the air. So, obtaining oxygen from water is a major problem for these water creatures. Snails living in fresh water use gills to extract oxygen from the water. They can only survive in water that has high oxygen content. Other snails have lungs, so they can come up from their home in stagnant water to fulfill their need for air. In the large lakes, zooplankton forms an important part of freshwater ecosystem. These zooplanktons are tiny animals and animal-like microorganisms that float freely as part of the plankton. Water fleas, which are crustaceans and are not related to real fleas, along with a unique group of microscopic animals called rotifers, form common freshwater zooplanktons. Many of these zooplanktons eat plant-like planktons called the phytoplankton, while some are carnivores or meat-eaters and eat smaller zooplankton. These zooplanktons then become food of fish and other large animals. Insects play many different roles in freshwater ecosystem. There are more variety of insects in the world than all other animal species put together. Most of these insects live on land, but over millions of years of evolution, many of the insects have become specialists of freshwater. They have evolved many features that equip them for life in water. Some have snorkels for breathing through the surface. Others carry air bubbles around them. Mayfly larvae that live in rushing streams often have flat bodies. This flat body helps them wriggle under the rocks and avoid the strong water current. Few of caddisfly larvae build themselves protective cases out of small stones or debris. Some even build underwater nets to catch prey. There are about 25,000 species of fish across the world. These varieties are as much as all the vertebrates like birds, mammals, reptiles, and amphibians put together. In spite of occupying a small area as compared to vast ocean, of these 25,000 species of fish, 10,000 live in world's rivers and lakes. The probable reason behind this is that lakes and rivers are separated by land, which in turn allows isolated population to evolve into new species. One example of this is hundreds of different species of fish found in the lakes of Africa. These fish belong to one single cichlid family and evolved in isolation after the formation of lakes. As much as the species of fish vary, their feeding habits are also varied. Some lake fish feed by straining tiny plankton through their gills. Because of their size, speed and sharp senses, fish are top predators in the water, dominating other animals in rivers and lakes. The food of these fishes include invertebrates, other fishes, or sometimes even water birds and mammals. The red-bellied piranha is most fearsome one living in Amazon. They hunt in groups and attack their victims with razor-sharp teeth. In contrast, there are also piranhas that survive on berries dropped by trees in the flooded Amazon forest. Some fish are plant eaters, like the grass carp, which eats underwater plants. In the United States of America, people deliberately release these grass carp in rivers in order to get rid of the water weeds. Rivers and lakes shelter some of the most ancient types of fish on the earth. Lampreys are the oldest of the lot. They don't have jaws and feed by attaching to fish and rasping at their flesh with sucker-like mouths. But most of the fish have jaws and belong to two main groups, namely bony fish and cartilaginous jawed fish. Bony fish have skeletons made of bones, while cartilaginous jawed fish like sharks and rays have skeletons made up of cartilage. Sharks live in oceans, but few can cope with the fresh water. Bull sharks are one of the few human-eating species that swim far up to major rivers, including the Mississippi. Majority of freshwater species are bony fish, and few scientists suspect that bony fish first evolved from cartilaginous fish in freshwater. Then they gradually invaded the ocean. This might be the reason why members of so many prehistoric fish families live in freshwater today. The evolution of freshwater fish has occurred in various ways, which reflects their diverse lifestyles. One of the species, called trout, live in the fast-flowing stream and needs to swim constantly. It usually prefers cold water, which provides more oxygen. Other fishes living in streams use their mouths as suckers to anchor themselves against the current. There is one constant danger faced by the fish living in the fast-flowing streams. The eggs laid down by them are likely to get carried away in the stream. But fish overcome this obstacle by making nests in gravel, laying sticky eggs, brooding eggs in the mouth, or giving birth to swimming young. A fish called splash tetra even goes to an extreme to leap out of the water to lay eggs on overhanging leaves. In comparison to the sea, freshwater can be muddy with low visibility. But freshwater fish have a superb array of sensory organs that help them get around this. Like all fish, they have a vibration detecting system called a lateral line running down each side of the body. The lateral line can feel the ripples made by the other moving objects, giving a sense of touch at a distance. Most fish, like salmon, have a good sense of smell. It can detect the faint but distinctive scent of the river in which they were born. This allows them to migrate to the river even after they have spent years at sea to lay eggs. The migratory pattern is opposite in both the American eel as well as European eel. Their adult life is spent in rivers and lakes in America, Africa and Europe, but they return to the depths of Sargasso Sea to breed and die. The next generation of the young eels, known as elvers, then must find their long way back to freshwater. These elvers are only 5 to 10 centimeters in length, but swim hundreds of miles to reach rivers where they feed and grow. Catfish have a poor vision and hunt mainly at night, but they make heavy use of chemical sensors on the barbels around their mouth. There are some catfish that can even taste with their tail. Freshwater habitats are also ideal breeding grounds for amphibians. Amphibians are animals like frogs and salamanders that live partly in water and partly on land. The larvae of most amphibians have gills and live underwater. As they grow into an adult, they have lungs and legs and can walk on land. But they need to keep their skin moist. Amphibians breathe through their damp skin, and skins of many species contain poison glands which they use to ward off predators. Almost all amphibians are carnivores and eat other animals for food. Salamanders are amphibians with long bodies and tails. Though many live on land as adults, there are some species who have returned to completely live in water. North and Central America have an unusually large number of salamander species. The world's largest salamanders are the giant salamanders of rocky, fast-flowing Chinese and Japanese rivers. They can grow up to 5 feet long. These giants are active at night and can live permanently in water, surviving on rats and turtles for food. As for frogs, few of them live entirely in water as adults. But their tadpoles form an important part of freshwater food chain. They become food for insects like water beetles. Although reptiles like lizards and snakes are land-living creatures, many of them have returned to freshwater and made it their home. There are few snakes and lizards that hunt in freshwater. The most typical freshwater reptiles are turtles and crocodiles. Freshwater turtles usually prefer weed-filled ponds and slow-moving rivers and eat both plant and animal food. The soft-shelled turtles are the most aquatic ones and have flat pancake-shaped bodies. They are fast swimmers and can breathe underwater through their skin. As a result, they rarely come onto the land. World's largest freshwater turtle is the alligator snapping turtle of southern USA. It is a massive creature and attracts its prey by wiggling a worm-like projection on its tongue. In warmer regions, crocodiles, alligators, caimans, and gharials are top predators of rivers and lakes. In contrast to amphibians, reptiles lay eggs that are protected by hard shells and can hatch on land. Reptiles living in water return to land to lay their eggs. A crocodile is considered to be a caring mother and guards her buried eggs. When they hatch, she digs them out and gently carries them in her mouth to the water's edge. The gharial of Indian rivers is one of the unusual and endangered species. Its long, narrow snout is ideal for catching fish. It leaves the water only to bask and nest. Even birds take full advantage of the resources offered by the rivers and lakes. ducks and other floating birds use rivers and lakes not only for food, but as a haven for saving themselves from land predators. Some ducks eat plant, while others are specialized fish hunters. A variety of species of mammals have also returned to the watery way of life. These aquatic and air-breathing freshwater mammals have descended from sea mammals like the river dolphins and the freshwater manatees of the Amazon. The 5 species of river dolphins have made the great river system of Asia and South America their home. These river dolphins have poor eyesight and hunt by bouncing sound waves of their prey. This technique is known as echolocation. Otter is another aquatic mammal that often comes onto the land in spite of having webbed feet and closable nostrils to help themselves underwater. These otters are playful mammals and are expert underwater hunters. The giant otter of the Amazon grows to a full length of 6 feet. In addition to these mammals, there are several fishing bats that grab their prey from above. Then there are hippopotamus of Africa that spend much of their lives in water, climbing onto land only to graze, usually at night. Lake Baikal in eastern Russia is not only the deepest lake in the world, but also the oldest. It might be as old as 25 million years or even more. These long years have given plenty of time to the lake for evolution and to produce unique species. Today, many of its inhabitants live nowhere else in the world. The lake is covered in winter with ice and has deep currents that ensure that there is plenty of oxygen even at the lake bed, which is 1.6 kilometers below the surface. It also boasts of the world's only freshwater seal called the Baikal Sea or Nerpa. The second deepest lake after Baikal is the Tanganyika Lake in Africa, having a depth of 1.5 kilometers. This deep lake has a relatively low human population living on its shores and is also the lowest point on the African continent. Lake Victoria is Africa's largest lake and the second biggest freshwater body in the world in terms of area after Lake Superior. Lake Victoria lies between the two arms of East Africa's Great Rift Valley. Even though it was formed only 200,000 years ago, it supports hundreds of species of fish and the maximum number of species belong to the cichlid family. This family is found nowhere else, and it remains a mystery as to how so many species evolved in such a short time. Today, the modern fishing techniques, along with pollution due to sewage and fertilizers from farms, have made half of Lake Victoria's native fish species extinct. Rivers and lakes have been used by humans since long time. In Eastern Asia, people continue to live on houseboats or stilt houses by the water's edge. Rivers have also been playing an important role in spiritual and religious beliefs of the people. Like River Ganges in India is considered to be holy by the Hindus, and hundreds of thousands of pilgrims come to take part in annual bathing festivals. Humans have also been responsible for reshaping the nature by diverting and controlling the rivers for various reasons, like irrigation, public water supplies, using water to provide energy, and creating inland routes for ships. Building dams are one of the large river projects undertaken by humans. Large dams and reservoirs today interrupt many of the world's major river systems like the Volga in Russia and Indus in Pakistan. Rivers and lakes have to face one of the greatest challenges of survival through contamination by artificial substances such as sewage and chemicals from farms and industry. This is known as pollution. And the sources of pollution can be many, starting from factories to accidents and spillages. One road tanker spilling its load can damage years of work done in restoring a river to a healthy state. Acid rain is another major pollution problem caused by gases like sulfur dioxide. This gas is released when fossil fuels are burned and can travel thousands of kilometers on the wind and dissolve in rainwater. This makes the rainwater acidic. Acid rains have been responsible for thousands of rivers in Norway and Sweden for losing a great population of fish. These acid rains can dissolve aluminium present in soils, which again is poisonous to many creatures. Even farming is a cause of pollution to freshwater habitats. Crops are often treated with fertilizers made in factories to help them grow. These fertilizers dissolve in rain and flow into nearby rivers, lakes and ponds, making the water turn murky green. The oxygen level in this water falls, causing the fish and other animals to suffocate. This process is called eutrophication. Various steps are being taken to control the problem of pollution. One natural method is to let the water pass through a marshy wetland first. The growing wetland plants take up some of the nutrients and bacteria and turn some of the nitrates into harmless nitrogen gas. But the future of rivers, lakes and ponds is of great concern. Humans use these freshwater sources to dump pollutants and at the same time take water from these resources for personal use as well as in various industries. Under these circumstances, can the wildlife in the water survive? Over and above this, what effect will it have on human life? In the coming century, the human population worldwide is in great danger of running out of fresh water. This should be a great enough reason for us humans to take care of our lakes and rivers. The time has come to decide between economic growth and the very survival of the human race along with our planet Earth. Modernization across the globe has brought people from villages to city. The urban lifestyle has made people use much more water than used by the villagers. Many international rivers flow through different countries and its resources are being claimed by all the countries, which might lead to disputes in the coming years, and these disputes can take the shape of a war if the upstream country starts to take in too much water, depriving the other countries of their share. Global warming is another aspect that can alter the flow of river, making it unpredictable and causing floods. It can also affect the levels and saltiness of the lakes. Even after these challenges, there is brighter side to all of these concerns and there are signs of hope. people across the world are beginning to understand the working of freshwater ecosystem and are aware the extent of damage their actions have done or can do. So steps are being taken to rectify the damage and restore the freshwater ecosystems to their natural form. Like in the UK, growing of garden ponds has gained popularity. These ponds help in preserving the population of frogs and newts that were threatened by the destruction of pond habitats in the countryside. Today, hydropower provides much of the electricity needed for various purposes. The hydropower is although cheap and clean, but it has the capacity to disrupt the freshwater ecosystems drastically. The solution is not far away, and there is one more source through which yet cheaper and cleaner power can be available. This process is called nuclear fusion, which would produce far less pollution than today's nuclear power stations. In spite of these positive steps being taken, it is important to note that the other species of any biome make optimum use of its ecosystems without damaging it. We humans tend to overexploit our surroundings in the name of development and economic growth. But if the human race is to survive along with the other species on planet Earth, then it is time to wake up, take notice and do something about it. Or else, the only planet in our solar system supporting life will become just like other planets, barren and lifeless.
How much longer before my turn, sir? I have been waiting for hours already. My tired bones can't take it anymore. Patience, old man. You are next in the queue. But before you go inside, you must give me 5 gold coins. 5 gold coins? Whatever for? To enter the court, old